What I'm going to be doing in this video is showing you how to go from an average student to a high achieving VCE student within 2 to 3 months and help you secure your dream career. And how I'm going to illustrate this is through something that I've used and I've used for hundreds of my students, and this is called the 3 levers of VCE success. Now, just a bit about me before we start this video. This is me teaching at Monash University. While I was studying at Monash University doing my Bachelor's of Engineering, I also was teaching as an undergraduate teacher in one of the first year subjects, and it was a real privilege and honor of mine to be doing something I love for a field and industry which I love as well. So here's a picture of me teaching. Here's a picture of me winning the teaching award, which I was very grateful to receive as well, as I was recognized for the work that I was doing with my students at the time. And now that I've graduated, I'm currently working at an engineering company called Jacobs, just doing some power and electrical work. So really interesting work, and I've really loved all my experiences up until now, which we'll get into later in this video. Now, if you want to find a system to bulletproof your VCE scores in the top 10% of the state and make sure that you will not fall victim to the ATAR ranking system, then this will be the most useful piece of content you will ever come across. Now, the reason why I'm making this video, which we'll delve into later as well, but the main reason why I'm making this video is because a lot of students, they don't actually know what they're doing in VCE. They kind of just go through the motions and they're doing work after school. They're not really sure what they're doing is working or not either. So what I'm doing in this video is just illustrating what you should be doing after school, what you should be doing outside of your classwork in order to get ahead and put yourself into the top 10% of the state. Because a lot of you watching this video, you probably have the same goals of 40 plus study score for VCE methods and potentially 90 plus ATAR and potentially even beyond that as well. So what we're going to be doing in this video is breaking down the exact process of what you should be doing after school and over the holidays. And if you're watching this just before summer, this is perfect timing to see what you should be doing over summer to really set the foundations and get ahead of the competition. Now, this video is only for you if you're determined to help you shortcut the learning of the secrets to succeed in VCE. Now, you probably tried to convince yourself to study and do homework, but sometimes it just goes through one ear and out the other. And it's sometimes hard to hear advice from people that you know as well. So for example, it's really hard to receive advice from your teachers. It's really hard to receive advice from your parents. So I'm making this video from an objective standpoint and showing you just what's worked for me and what's worked for other students as well. And this video is intended to help you take advantage of the majority of students being stuck in the bottom 90% of the state without any guidance or expert help. Now, watch this video for your knowledge to understand the process and what it takes to succeed in year 11 and year 12. Sometimes you might be given words, and this is what I said before, sometimes you might be given advice from your parents, teachers, or other tutors, and it's sometimes difficult to discuss this and take advice from someone about an unrelated topic, someone that you know personally. It's the same thing as when I try to teach my younger brothers and get them to do something that relates to VCE. They don't really listen. It just goes through in one year and out the other. And that's because I have a personal relationship with them. They don't see me as someone who's an expert in teaching, for example. They don't see me as someone who's gone through the VCE process before. They just see me as their brother. So I'm going to be talking to you as an objective viewpoint, what you should be doing to get ahead and get ahead of the competition as well. Now, this person to be delivering this message today is me, and hence this video. Now, this case study video is going to save you a year's worth of trying to study. And I promise that if you try to implement everything that I said in this video, your knowledge will increase exponentially within a month. Now, that's no exaggeration. If you implement everything that I do in this video and everything that I say in this video, then your knowledge and your knowledge retention will increase drastically, and that's going to set the foundation for success in your SACs and your exams. And the reason why I'm able to make such a bold claim is because this is exactly what I was able to do when I studied throughout year 11 and year 12. And I've also refined this process for hundreds of students over the past 6 years as well that I've taught personally. Now I'm going to be breaking down everything that I did, so you can just copy it literally word for word, item for item, and you can get the same result as me if you want. Now, just a bit about me, a bit about who am I before we get into the 3 levers of VCE success in this video. My name is Adrian. My family could not afford tutoring for me when I was in VCE. I have a lot of brothers, and if everyone got their own private tutoring for each individual subject for every year, then there would be no money left. So no tutoring in VCE. Now, I found a lot of free resources online to help me during VCE, and these resources were okay. I just used them just to get by in the meantime. Now, during VCE, probably more interestingly, I played competitive soccer all the way up until year 12. And during year 12, I worked part-time without backing down during year 12 as well. I looked after my brother with a disability. He has Down syndrome, and this was, of course, all my life, but in particular during year 12, during that stressful period, I still had to maintain this commitment. And I was responsible for chores during year 12 for a 7-person household. You can imagine how many chores there were that had to be done. And this is something that I still do on a day-to-day basis as well. So these things that I've set up in place, they've helped me still maintain all of these things as well. Now, I graduated in 2018 with a 98.55 ATAR while still maintaining the above commitments specifically and all the way consistently throughout the year. Now, I started studying engineering at university on a scholarship, and I self-learned knowledge for 3 different internships that didn't relate to my degree as well. So all the self-learning strategies that I learned and refined during year 11, year 12, they actually transferred over to uni, and they've also transferred over to my current job as we speak as well. Now, I've started teaching at uni while studying as well. So I've taught 1,000 plus students since I started teaching. I was teaching from 2021 to 2023. So now that I've graduated, I've stopped teaching at uni. But while I was there, I also received the Monash Engineering Teaching Award in 2022. As I said, a great honor and a great privilege. I found a passion for learning and teaching through this experience and through my private tutoring. And I started tutoring high school students. And in total, I've definitely tutored over 100 students. I'd say it's more likely in the realm of about 250 to 300 now from when I started to now. Now, I didn't want to tutor like everyone else out there with these weekly sessions because I knew that these were expensive and these were things that didn't actually work. And we'll break down why that's the case later in this video. And I started to put together my way of self-learning from all of my commitments through year 11, through year 12, and also through uni as well. And I made it work for year 11 and year 12 students. Now, my pathway to self-learning any concept I wanted to completely opened up my opportunities, and I've now pursued a career in a field that I didn't even graduate in. So currently I'm in a job that didn't actually relate to my degree. Now, it's kind of funny to say, it does relate somewhat, but it's not exactly what I graduated in. And the only reason why I was able to achieve this privilege of working in a field that I wanted to without actually studying in it is purely from the self-learning strategies that I learned and I fundamentally created in year 11 and year 12. So below are going to be some examples of the projects that I've worked on and the skills I self-learned to get these experiences as someone who was specifically unqualified. Now, the first one was one of the most coolest ones. It was part of a student team called Monash Motorsport. So I had to self-learn car knowledge before application assessment and the interview. And I was able to work on a race car built from scratch that competes in international race competitions all over the world. Now, my next experience was part of Monash Health. So what I did was I self-learned coding and app development knowledge for the interview and also the work required for this position. And I was able to work on an app that was used by Monash Health to calculate dosages for emergency situations. Such a cool project and such an honor to be part of this project and helping out everyone that needs dosage calculations in emergency situations. My next experience was part of Rail Projects Victoria. So I self-learned train and rail knowledge for the interview and assessment. And as a result of that, I was able to build up my engineering experience and I was able to work on rail projects worth billions of dollars for the government, such as the Metro Tunnel project, which should be finishing up very soon. The next position that I applied for was at a company called Xero. Xero is an accounting software that is used all of us across Australia, New Zealand, and it's expanding to all across the world now. But at the time, I was just applying for an internship and I had to self-learn front-end and back-end software development skills for the interview and assessment. And if you've heard anything about software interviews, they're some of the most grueling ones because they're very technical and very precise. And I was able to self-learn these strategies and get the position. And as a result of that, I was able to work at a private company which pays 6 figures as a graduate. Now, the reason why I wanted to include that in is because a lot of people, they do want to go into a career that pays a lot of money, which is completely fair enough. You're working in order to fulfill a certain lifestyle that you want. So I just wanted to put this in there. This self-learning strategies that you'll learn as you go will help you during application processes, help you through university, and help you get to those positions in the easiest way possible. Another company that I worked for was Deloitte. So as applying through the application process, I had to self-learn business strategy and transformation skills for the interview and assessment. And as a result, I was able to work in one of the largest consulting companies in the world doing business consulting without a business degree. So again, this is another example of an opportunity that I had to self-learn for. I had to self-learn different skills in order to fulfill this position requirement. And as a result, I was able to study and work in something that I had no idea about anything. But I was still able to do it just through the self-learning process and knowing how to actually learn things efficiently. Another experience which I talked about before was working at Monash University as a teaching associate and as a lead demonstrator. So I had to self-learn how to teach people and engineering concepts relevant to the subjects I was applying for. And as a result, I was able to work as the youngest teaching associate at Monash Engineering, teaching students, some of which were older than me, which was an interesting dynamic, but it shows that it doesn't matter what your age or level of experience is when it comes to self-learning. It just matters how well you present at the end of the day. Same thing as your exam. It doesn't matter how much you technically know or how smart you are. It's about how well your answers are presented on exam day. Now, this is my current experience. This is a company called Jacobs. I had to self-learn electrical and power fundamentals for the interview and assessment. And as a result, I was able to work as a power engineer, working for clients such as NEOM in Saudi Arabia, which is the largest project currently in the world, valued at $500 billion US dollars, which is a lot of money, a lot of zeros. Now, that's my current opportunity, and I had to self-learn the skills for this as well in order to actually fulfill it and receive an offer. Now, this is the last experience I'm going to be talking about. My company, my tutoring company, Mind Learning, my passion that I've been doing for the last 3 or 4 years. So I have to self-learn a lot of things: marketing, ads, social media, sales, content development, and so many other things in order to build this very business. And as a result, I'm able to make an income for myself, but also help hundreds of students over the past 3 years. Now, that's directly, but I've helped thousands of students through my free content that I've given out online, on Instagram, on YouTube, on Facebook, whatever platform you name it. We probably have free content there, but the ability to help so many students has been such a privilege as well. So these are all my experiences. These are all the things that I've had to self-learn some piece of knowledge or some piece of content in, and as a result, I've been able to thrive within whatever industry I've been placed in or whatever industry I want to develop. Now, the reason why I was so determined to learn all of these skills independently and so quickly was that I didn't want to fall victim to going down the traditionally long and boring path I saw everyone around me take. So this goes beyond VCE. I wanted to give myself as many options as possible. And I felt that if I didn't take control of what I was learning all the way back from year 12, then I would be stuck going down the same dead-end route with little to no opportunities to study and work in my dream industries, or just have the freedom of choice. I'm very much a person about freedom. I want to give myself as many possibilities as possible. It's kind of a weird way to word it, but I just want to give myself as many possibilities in the long run. So hence, I wanted to try out all those internships, and the only reason I was able to do that was through the self-learning process. Now, I decided one day during year 11 and year 12 that the only thing matters to me in life was my future. And that was solely in my hands and no one else's. I told myself that if there's something that I need to learn, then I'm going to learn it in the most optimal way that outpaces the competition and gets me ahead of the rest. Now, getting ahead of the rest is one of the key points. It sounds kind of weird, but that's what the ATAR system is at the end of the day. It is a competition against everyone else, and you need to find a competitive advantage to try and overlap the next person and trying to get higher scores and trying to retain more knowledge than them. So as a result of this, I became obsessed with learning the skills that I needed to succeed in VCE and beyond, because I knew that this would open up doors for me down the track, not only with a high ATAR, but with the skills to learn everything I needed to for my career. So in this video, I'm going to be breaking down that VCE mastery blueprint and the 3 levers of self-learning that unclog any bottlenecks in your learning process. So a bottleneck is pretty much just the point at which you're kind of struggling. So for example, if you're really good at theory, but you're not so good at applications, then your bottleneck is application questions. So as a result of this 3 levers of self-learning, you're going to be able to learn any concept efficiently and score high this year. and take that knowledge to succeed in your future career as well. And I believe that you will be able to leave this video with so much value that you'll be able to change your VCE story and also your life within a matter of months after implementing these tips. Now, the reason why I'm making this video is because I'm looking for driven students who are hungry to do really well in VCE so they can not only get into their dream uni course, but also self-learn any skill for their future career as well. And I want to be able to work personally with you so that you can quickly move on to bigger things, such as catching up with content in a short time frame, getting ahead of the competition with theory, refining theory with application practice, building confidence before Saxon exams, and most importantly, this is what I really emphasize with all of my teaching and all of my students, having more time to yourselves with newly found efficiency. Now, that's a really key point because my strategy is not necessarily just about brute force, spending as much time as humanly possible working. I want to be able to do things, and I want you to be able to do things in an efficient manner so you can spend time to work part-time. You can spend time to play sports still. You can spend time to socialize with your family and with your friends as well. That's what I want you to take away from this video. But also, this will not only help with learning independently, but provide you with the mindset to stay accountable as well. And you are literally 3 steps away from getting there. As I said, it's the 3 levers of VCE success. So you're 3 steps away from doing what you need to set up the foundation for VCE success. And it's not a function of time, like people think it is and what people say. A function of time would mean that you have to spend, for example, 6 months or 5 years to learn something. And people think that because they slacked off in year 7, year 8, year 9, they're not going to be able to succeed in year 11 or 12. And that's simply just not the case. It's a function of skill set. It's a function of how much you know. And you can learn everything that you need to for self-learning and for VCE success by the end of this video. The average person will never learn these skills before they finish VCE. And they'll be stuck at just rolling the dice and essentially just gambling with what their exam scores and what their SAC scores might be. However, you know that you are not average, and that's why you are watching this video. So I want you to believe that this is definitely possible after you learn the 3-step framework, which I'm about to outline in this video. Now, this is for you if you care about excelling in your learning in VCE in the fastest way possible. As I said, we care about studying efficiently in the fastest way possible. And you want to be proud of your improvement during VCE. Now, here's the secret about VCE that no one is going to tell any student. You can absolutely break into the top 5 to 10% of your class and the state if you actually retain and understand the information and just understand more than the rest, pretty much. Now, the only difference between you and others right now is that the top 5 to 10% walk out of class remembering more than you do. And that's the only difference between them. And they must be doing something different, right? There has to be something differentiating you between the other person who's the top of your class or in the top 5 to 10% of your school or of the state. Now, all successful people in VCE need to have the theory and application perfected, because while the teacher teaches you the theory, you need to be able to learn these skills as well as the applications earlier and also independently. The only way to learn things earlier is if you do it independently. But right now, you don't know how to learn independently. You need to figure out how to do that. And that's what the 3 levers of VCE success is all about. The people who do really well are the people who have perfected both of these, not just one. So they've perfected the theory and they've also perfected the applications as well. And you might think that you have the theory perfected, but the chances is that you don't. And that's just the way that it is. And in year 12, it's especially crucial to have the theory understood earlier because you need to spend more time on applications because the SACs are worth more and the exams are, of course, more crucial than any other exam that you've done in the past. Now, everyone thinks that success in VCE is all about experience, and you have to waste time doing thousands of questions to get your dream scores. I don't know about you, but I wouldn't want to give away all of my spare time and sacrifice my well-being to learn the hard way when I can simply just learn the easy way. And most VCE students don't know the easy way because they haven't heard of these 3 levers of self-learning in VCE. Now, this is the traditional way, and we'll call it the passive way because it's just the passive way of learning. It's just going through the motions. It's just not really thinking about what you're doing. This is what people by default learn. So this is the traditional way of learning. When you ask most VCE students where they're at in VCE, you'll notice that most people say that they're stuck in knowing the theory, but you don't know how to apply these skills to exam style questions at all. You might be in this position as well. You might feel that, hey, I know the theory, but when it comes to SACs, I kind of struggle with those types of questions. And there's a specific reason for that. It's because your knowledge is being capped by the teacher that is teaching you all of that content. So you're stuck at knowing the theory, but you're never exposed to the application questions that are literally the only ones that actually increase your SAC and exam grades. You can answer all of the theory questions super well. You can figure out how to find the derivative of some sort of equation. But if you can't apply that to an application style problem, there's actually no point of knowing the theory because you need to be able to apply that on application type problems because that's what's tested at the end of the day. Now, what ends up happening is that you have to cram the content and applications leading into every assessment because you just followed the class and the class just finishes the theory right before the SAC or right before the exam. And at the end of each of these periods of time, you just scrape a half decent grade and you're still disappointed to not achieve your desired grades. So you crammed it in. You felt like you put in a lot of work because you crammed it in, and then you didn't achieve a proper result. So it creates a negative cycle of feeling like you're working hard and efficiently for that short period of time or that short burst. You don't get a good SAC score, and then you feel disappointed, and you're desensitized, and you don't feel the incentive to actually try harder the next time. And that's where a lot of students are. That's where a lot of students are from year 11 leading into year 12. And that's where a lot of students are during the year 12 process as well, after they might have done their first or their second SAC. So as a result, or as a summary, you are in fact going at a pace that is determined by your class and by your teacher. And this will lead to an average level of knowledge and results because you're literally doing what everyone else is doing. You have no control over the speed at which you get to learn the theory and applications. Now just imagine this. Imagine working hard and doing the same exercises as the people that you're trying to be better than. It's like the same as expecting to run a race faster than everyone else by putting in the same work as everyone else. You have to take the extra step. You have to take the extra time and extra precaution when it comes to your preparation. You will never know how long it would take to learn all of these skills needed as a top 5 to 10% student in the state because you're stuck with just following your class. And you will never have access to the resources and the expertise to help you turn the theory from textbooks to useful knowledge. Not just knowledge, but useful knowledge to master the applications on SACs and exams. It will take you years to learn the skills that you need to master applications without specific practice. But unfortunately, VCE requires mastery of applications almost instantly. As soon as you learn the theory, you're expected to know the application and you're expected to know how to apply that to SAC and exam style questions. It's just unrealistic without specific practice and without specific mastery. Again, recall what the goals are that you have set for yourself and what are the steps to actually get there. So you want to master the theory before the class even teaches it. You ideally want to master the applications specific to test scenarios, and you want to refine the question styles that only 1 to 2% of the state can answer correctly. They're the 3 goals that you should have set for yourself. This is a whole separate video in yourself, but these are the goals that you should have set for yourself. Everything else is just a byproduct of that. Your goal is not a 40 study score in VCE methods. Your goal is not a 95 plus ATAR. Your goal is to do these things, and that will just be a byproduct. Those results will be a byproduct of putting in these inputs. Now, this is probably how you study right now. So this is the flow process of what most students go through when they just study something. So you start learning a topic, and ideally, you go through the textbook independently. And then you go through SAC style questions independently. Now, do you understand the SAC style question thoroughly? No, you review the solution to understand, and then you attempt more that are kind of similar. Do you understand the SAC style question thoroughly? If you do understand it, then you consider yourself a master of that specific topic. It's a pretty basic process that a lot of students go through when they're prepping for SACs and they're prepping for assessments and exams. And you can see a couple of flaws with this flow process, which we'll go over in the next slide here. So this is how you should be studying. This is how you should be studying independently to master a topic. So this is where you are right now. Now, what you should do is go through the textbook independently. Now, a minimum baseline that I say is about 2 weeks before class. There's specific reasons for this, but you could go up to 5 weeks before class if you're very careful and very thorough. Now, do you completely understand basic examples? If the answer is no, then you can find external resources to help relearn the same concepts. For example, my free videos, other free videos online. You can ask your teacher as well. You can ask your coach or your tutor. Anywhere to help you understand the basic examples, you can refer to that. Now, if you understand them completely, then refine your knowledge in class when your teacher goes through the topic. This is a really underrated point that people miss when going through the content independently. They don't pay attention to their teacher, but even though your teacher's maybe not perfect, it's still a good place to fill in the gaps of those knowledge that you missed during independent learning. Now, after that, you go through the SAC style questions independently. And if you understand it, then you source more questions from your teacher, from old exams, from our free resources. Wherever you want to source free questions from, you can get them from, and you can keep just trying more out. Now, the review process is really important because if you don't understand a SAC style question, then you need to look at the solution and write down the process in digestible steps. So write down the general process for that question or for that problem-solving problem with digestible steps that apply generally. And then rewrite the solution from scratch without looking at the original solution. Don't just review the solution. Don't just look at it and say, okay, I know how to do it now. You need to go through the actual process of writing out the solution, and you should technically get it correct because you've just learned the process with your digestible steps. And then you continue to go over more and more questions. And you'll notice that this loop never finishes. You still need to be practicing more and more questions. There's always more questions to practice. You can always source more questions from old exams, from VCA exams, from non-VCA exams, from my resources, from your school's resources. You could always source more questions. So the key here is just, it's an infinite game. You need to keep on improving because there's no endpoint to say, okay, I'm officially ready for this exam. Once it hits exam day, then you're ready because you should know that you have so much confidence that you should know you could give a good attempt to any question that comes your way. Now, here's the full VCE blueprint for shortening your learning curve and becoming an independent learner. Now, just as a summary, we are not letting others, such as our school and our teacher, take control of our lives. We're not waiting around for your teachers to teach. We're taking matters into our own hands to help you achieve your desired level of knowledge and goals with the shortest amount of time possible. Now, here are the 3 levers, and you're going to implement these 3 levers of self-learning in order to get you into the top 10% of students within VCE. Now, this is step 1. Step 1 is to learn the theory 3 to 5 weeks before the class by doing the following steps. This is exactly what I tell my students, my private students, to do, and this is how I set up their exact study schedule for each topic and subtopic. I get them first to read the textbook independently and thoroughly. And as they're going through it, they're going to summarize everything using the Cornell method of taking notes. If you want to look up the Cornell method, you can do that separately, but it's essentially just a way of summarizing notes with examples, with summarizations, and also with just everything that you need. It's essentially just a cheat sheet. You can put it all on one sheet, and it's a summary of one individual subtopic. Then I get them to consolidate all of their content using my online coursework as well. And I get them to complete the workbook, which is a physical book that I give out to them. I get them to complete the workbook for the topic, which has a bunch of questions from them. Essentially, it doesn't matter where these things are from. Essentially, they just go through this full process of learning from start to finish before class. And this is something that you can do as well. And then after all this, it's crazy because they then attend their scheduled class and then reconsolidate their knowledge. So you should be aiming to do the same thing. You do the full learning process before class, and then you go to class and fill in the gaps in your knowledge and reconsolidate your knowledge. Class is not useless, by the way. It's important to reconsolidate your knowledge and learn it again to follow the curve of forgetting or the curve of memorization, which I'm going to show you in a future slide. Then you can reconsolidate your knowledge again by doing the textbook exercises. So that's when you do the textbook exercises. Once you've done my examples, once you've done your teacher's classwork or your teacher's class notes, once you do the independent learning, then you do the textbook exercises, and you should be expecting to blitz this and get them all right, which is where you want to be, because your competition, the other students in your class, they're just going to be learning these concepts for the first time, but you're going to be a master of it. And then I get them to message their coach with any questions. You can just simply replace this with asking your teacher any questions that you have as well. Now, this is the reason why I split up the learning process into so many different steps, because the idea is to increase the frequency at which you learn, not necessarily just by increasing the total study time. So this is what they call the curve of forgetting. Essentially, it's just a way of visualizing when or how much knowledge you learn as a result of how frequently you learn. So if you just pay attention once in class, this is what happens. You start off by remembering about 70 to 80%. That's what the research shows. And then if you don't expose yourself to the stimuli or expose yourself to the material again, you can see this just dipping and dipping and dipping. And that's the amount retained in the long term. Not that much. It's literally less than 5%, it looks like. Very low amount. Now, if you revise or reconsolidate your knowledge through some of the other means, for example, reading your textbook or watching some videos or doing some examples, then what you can see is that this curve boosts up, and then it diminishes and it diminishes, it diminishes, and then it diminishes again. Okay, I could go full screen. And it keeps on diminishing again. But the key thing to remember is that in the long run, it's higher than it was before. So when you keep on exposing yourself to this content more times, then you can see that the long run memory retention is much greater. Now, this is the curve of forgetting. If you increase the frequency at which you expose yourself to material, then eventually you're going to remember a lot more in the long run. Now, if we just go to the previous slide, what I talked about before with these steps, you can see that I've split up the learning process into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 steps. But 7 steps for just learning the theory. Now, you can imagine if someone went through, or if you went through these 7 steps for any given topic, there is no way that you will not understand the content well. That's the idea by how I structure my students' schedules and structure their study plans. It's splitting up the content into digestible steps. These steps don't take too long either. Reading the textbook should take about 15 to 20 minutes. Writing the notes should take about 15 to 20 minutes. Watching the videos is probably half an hour maximum. Your classwork, you have to go to class anyway, so you might as well just spend some time consolidating your knowledge there. All these steps are quite short. So if you can do them and split them up and do it strategically by following a study plan, then you're going to have no issue in 3C or 3-4 methods with understanding the theory. And that is the foundation for success when going into application questions, SACs, and exams as well. So that was step 1 of the 3 levers of VCE success. This was level 1. Mastering the theory 3 to 5 weeks before class by doing these 7 steps here. Now, level 2. Practice SAC and exam style questions way before your class does. So this is how I get my students to do this. So I get them to attempt the review chapters that are relevant to those topics, and I get them to watch the relevant tutorial videos in the online coursework. These are more centered around application style questions. So more so beyond the theory, of course, it's applying them to basic applications and then more complex, unique applications that are I'd say unique, and I mean they're very unique in the way that they're worded, because they're essentially trying to test all the different permutations of things that can be asked, which I think is really important for students to be exposed to these types of questions. And that's where, this is a bit of sidetrack, that's where my expertise comes in. Because I've been teaching for a long time, I've exposed myself to these different types of questions, and I know what the different tips and tricks are when people make questions and also when people attempt questions. So with the questions that I make and with the tutorials that I run, I get students to understand all these different nuances of the topics to make sure that they can understand the questions in any way it's presented. So I get them to attempt the relevant review chapters, watch the relevant tutorial videos in the online coursework, and then go through application questions from the physical workbook and also the SAC question bank that I give them. And then I get them to go through past SAC and exam style questions individually. So the individual questions rather than a full set of an exam or something like that. That's more reserved for exam specific revision. Now, this is done frequently. This is the key thing I want to emphasize at this step. You can do this and you have to do it frequently. So how frequently I do this with my students is at the end of each subtopic. So for example, if you're doing functions and relations and you've got topic 1A, which is sets and notation, we are literally doing application style questions and harder type examples and complex examples at the end of that subtopic. And at the end of domain and range, and the ends of functions and sketching, at the end of each individual subtopic, we are focusing on the application. If you do that for each subtopic, you are going to succeed in VCE methods or in any VCE subject that you're trying to master. We do this at the end of each whole topic as well, because of course you combine different things together. You combine domain and range with inverse functions. You combine sketching with composite functions. You can do all those things. So we want to combine those skills together. And then again, we combine those things again when leading into SACs and leading into exams. Because when you're going into SACs, all the questions are going to be multifaceted. You're going to have differentiation mixed with exponentials and logs. You're going to have integration mixed with circular functions. There's going to be infinitely many combinations. And that's where preparing for SACs and preparing for exams is super critical. And hence the 3 to 5 weeks ahead, because you'll be 3 to 5 weeks ahead of everyone else. And you'll have 3 to 5 weeks more to practice these combinations and practice these permutations. Now that was level 2 of the self-learning in VCE methods. Level 3 is refining your knowledge through practicing SACs and exams in exam conditions and exam pressure. That's really crucial to duplicate the environment and duplicate the conditions that you're going to be in to control as many variables as possible. So the way that I do this is I get them to do timed SACs from their school or from myself. I get them to do timed exams from VCA, from exam companies, or from myself as well. I get them to do live testing with a coach or a friend or a tutor to explain the process. So just like impromptu questions. For example, if I ask you a question, how do you find the intersection between an inverse function and a normal and the original function if you don't know the inverse rule? So you, for example, you should be able to answer that. I'm not going to give it away because I want you to learn it yourself, but there's the type of the questions that you should be able to explain the process of without actually having to write out the question and see it in front of you. You should be able to imagine how to actually answer that question. And that's actually a really underrated skill, which I'm going to make a whole video about as well. And then I get them to go back to step 1 and 2 if they notice gaps in their knowledge. So go back to level 1, which is refine the theory, if there's any gaps in their theory, and then go back to level 2, which is just testing with basic applications as well. Now, every single time I perfect a new problem-solving technique or a student of mine perfects a new problem-solving technique, it increases my leverage. So as soon as you practice more applications, you're going to be increasing your leverage. What exactly does that mean? Here's a visual representation of leverage. If you put a certain amount of effort towards this side of the beam here, the load will go up at a certain amount. Don't worry about all the words. Don't worry about all the fancy terminology. If you put in a certain amount of effort in this beam, then the load is going to go up at a certain amount. But what we want to do is increase our leverage, which essentially means that we have a longer distance here. This distance represents your skill set and your applications. If you press down here now, you can imagine this load will shoot up like crazy because this distance there is so long. So your leverage is a lot longer. Therefore, the resultant load gets pushed up at a much higher force or a much higher rate. So eventually, what this means or how this is reflected in VCE is that you have to put in minimal effort to get a good score because you've increased your leverage. But the only thing that actually increases your leverage in VCE as a VCE student is your skill set. How many skills have you mastered? How many different types of application questions and application processes have you mastered? You will develop a mastered VCE skill set and you will be able to accelerate towards VCE success faster than other people because you have leverage. And this means that you can work the same amount of others, but achieve more. That's what we want to do at the end of the day. We want to work the same amount as everyone else. We don't want to be outworking ourselves and burning out. We want to be working at a minimal amount and still get the same results, if not higher than everyone else working just as hard. Now, this is how you implement this system step by step. Right now, you probably have a lot of ambition in VCE. And if you're still watching this video, you're probably buzzing to try this 3-step levers of VCE success and implement this for theory, implement this over the summer, leading into SAC 1, leading into SAC 2, leading into exams. Whenever you watch this video, you can implement this right away. That's the beauty of it. And you also have high hopes for yourself in terms of your scores. But what is limiting you is your current skill set and mindset. So right now, you want to learn the theory well, but you have to learn at the school's pace and not your own. You want to master the applications, but this is not taught in class by your teachers. And you didn't know that it was possible to learn the theory and learn the applications independently and fast, like how I suggested in this video. Now, this was back when I didn't understand the ideal process and I didn't stack the 3 levers of self-learning within VCE. I was stuck in this region here. I was trying to push through this small gap, which represents the possibility of me scoring a good grade. I was stuck here. But everything after this blueprint, implementing all of these things I've talked about in this video, got me through this amount of pressure here and got me through to the other side where I can see and foresee my future life, my future career, my uni life as well. Everything was a result of trying to learn this self-learning process and applying that to any other context that was necessary. Now, all the material needed for your dream VCE outcome, along with the blueprint to success, is on the other side of that wall there. Some people never even understand what it takes to maximize their VCE scores, and they don't know how to do it. When you can not only learn it, but you can learn how to master VCE within a matter of months by practicing and refining the process that I talked about above. Now, if you're still watching this video, this is my offer to you, and it's essentially about VCE mastery. Now, I'm opening up my doors to personally take on a few more serious VCE students who are serious about accelerating and growing ahead of the competition instead of keeping the same pace as their class. Now, I have a mission to work with specific types of people because, as I said before, I work full-time. I don't have a lot of time to work with heaps of people privately, so I want to limit it to the following types of people. So the first type is VCE method students who understand the value of mastering the theory quickly to buy time leading into assessments. The next type of student that I want to be working with are VCE students who believe that learning the theory passively and slowly, the traditional way during class, is not going to help them achieve their dream grades. And they want to shortcut that process to literally a matter of months. And the last type of person I want to be working with are VCE students who have high ambitions. They want at least a 40 plus study score or a 90 plus ATAR and are potentially aiming for a high achieving course such as medicine, engineering, commerce, or law, but need not limit it to that. If you have high expectations for yourself, I definitely want to be working with those types of people. So this is how you would be studying with me, with my program and with my guidance. So it's very similar to the process that I talked about before. I'll just talk about the additional steps here. If you do not understand basic examples and basic theory, then you will go through my own personal content. You'll go through questions together with me, with your coach via messaging, via calls, and we'll perfect the content together to make sure that there are no gaps. So you can learn things independently if you'd like to, that's perfectly fine. But having the content and the questions and the resources and the coaching and the guidance by your side will just make that process ever more so efficient and just ensure that you actually have a grasp of everything that you need to. Now, in terms of the SAC practice, if you do understand SAC questions thoroughly, then you can source infinitely many more from me. Obviously not infinitely many more, but there's enough to keep you going from now until the rest of the year. So you can source more questions from me, and these are custom-made resources that I've specifically made for the past 6 years, and I specifically make custom for my students, so they help you with your problems. They don't just help everyone else. So there's not cookie cutter things. They're specific questions that will help you with your specific problems. Now, if you don't understand any specific question, then you could go through application problems with me, with your coach, via messaging or via call to break down and understand the process together. Now, if you understand the value of developing skills to accelerate your VCE success, and you're not satisfied with the slow and traditional way, but you are a highly ambitious person, here is my offer to you. I'll personally show you how to implement the following. So what we're going to do is teach you all of the VCE self-learning skills and the methods-specific theory, application, and exam techniques based on where your skill set is currently lacking. Not just with cookie cutter things, not just with cookie cutter booklets, not just with cookie cutter videos. Of course, we have those videos that teach everyone everything, but we want to specifically help you with your problems. So a lot of the things that we do give out are custom things. So what I do is I allow you to learn at a high rate of success with the following different tangible things. So what you're going to get are multiple check-in calls per week with like-minded students who are aiming for a 40 plus. Now this will be at least 1 hour of time dedicated to you per week. Next thing is a recorded session every week by me, excelling through the theory and applications with other students who are aiming for 90 plus ATARs. Now, this would be about 2 hours of commitment per week as well. What we're also going to do for you is make a full VCE methods day-by-day study plan for the year, which is going to be custom to you, to your schedule, and to your other subjects as well. If you're studying UCAT, we're going to be allocating time for this as well. Now, this is going to be a day-by-day plan, and it's going to be for the year, and it accounts for all these other commitments that you have as well. Now, we're also going to give you daily messaging with me and your coach to help keep you accountable and maintain your schedule. Here's just a screenshot from someone's schedule that I've created. So it's exactly the same steps that I've talked about before. It tracks the importance of things, it tracks the completion, and also gives a due date as well. And we have this for every topic and everything that you need to cover for the year. Your year's already broken down. It's just a matter of customizing it to suit what you already know and what you don't know as well. What you're also going to get are hundreds of videos covering the theory and application questions for VCE methods. So these are small bite-sized videos. Most of them are about 2 to 5 minutes long. And essentially, I've just broken down every individual topic into small digestible steps to make it as easy for you to understand as possible. There are also hundreds of videos going through all of the types of SAC and exam style questions asked in the past by Vika. And I've also created extra questions beyond these as well that would just test the extremes of your knowledge and the extremes of your ability. Then I've got thousands of questions physically mailed to your door, specifically designed to help you master VCE methods with the least amount of work. So this was the workbook that I was referring to before. This is mailed to your door, so you have a physical copy of this book, professionally binded. That looks, actually, I got one on my bookshelf. I've got a book on my bookshelf. It looks something similar to this. This is what the next point is, but the book is like a physically binded book, laminated cover. It's quite... students do find the value in getting the physical book. So that's why I wanted to put some effort into making this book, make it look nice. And yeah, that's what my students have been using and appreciating. Now, what I was holding up was referring to the next point, 2 additional books mailed to your door. So you'll get 1 full CAS guide if you haven't already got one already. So for example, this one is the TI Inspire one. So this is a book which covers everything that you need to know for the calculator. So it has processes for literally everything with screenshots, all specific to VCE methods, which students find valuable. And there's also going to be 1 full book of SAC and exam, a question bank. It's kind of similar to VCE checkpoints, but I just make it a lot harder and a lot more rich with harder types of questions and more combinations of questions. So that has hundreds of full-length problems and also has a solution set as well. And then there's also some resources online which relate to self-learning course, more about this process of learning and how to apply that to self-learning within VCE specifically. Now, if you're a parent or your parents asking about what they can get through this, there's weekly progress check-in via email just to track progress and just to consolidate what you've been doing, what you've been up to, and how you've been improving. And then also a monthly call, most likely just with them too, but we can have a 3-way call as well to discuss significant milestones achieved and talk about how well you've been progressing. So suppose you're watching this and you have the genuine desire to succeed. You want to develop that hunger to self-learn any skill in VCE quickly and also beyond VCE as well, and move on to the next stage of your professional life with confidence and with top learning ability. So I have a link linked below, that you can book a call and we can create out a roadmap for your VC life and your career beyond that. And essentially just break down the self-learning process and break down what's limiting you specifically. So what we're going to do is figure out on this call which step of the learning process is holding you back right now. What step of the learning process is preventing you from succeeding within VC methods, with succeeding with your ATAR, and what's stopping you from getting into your dream uni course. And we can unclog that whole process within a matter of weeks working together. So all you have to do is to decide if you want to succeed in the best way possible way this year. And if the answer to that question is yes, then book a call and we'll discuss how I can do that for you this year.